Welcome to the System Simplified podcast, where we feature top leaders who share stories on how to successfully systemize a business. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hello, Adi Klevit here with the System Simplified podcast, where we interview top entrepreneurs, founders, and thought leaders about systematizing a business. And this podcast is being brought to you by Business Success Consulting Group. At Business Success Consulting Group, we create custom processes and tailor-made business systems so businesses can thrive and grow. All right, and today's guest is Isaiah Nolte. Hello, Isaiah.
Hi, Adi.
How
Great
are
to be
you?
on the show with you today.
Great to have you here. And you are the COO of Traction Tools.
Yes.
And I am super excited to have you on this show because we're going to talk about Traction Tools, which is basically a software that was developed in order to execute the Entrepreneurial Operating System, known as EOS, which is based on a book written by Gino Wickman. And we're going to talk about the importance of having a system, a software, in order to execute a system. And we're going to see how having a software actually helps execute that system. So for our listeners that are already using EOS, if you're not using Traction Tools, you're in for a treat to really hear how you can actually execute EOS better. For those of you who do not know about EOS, I'm sure you're going to learn about it. And for those of you that are using EOS and are using Traction Tools, I'm sure you're also going to learn new things about how to use Traction Tools. So there is something for everyone. And before we start, I'd like to give a big shout out to Whale and to Gary from Whale, who introduced us to begin with. And Whale is a platform that I love using for for process documentation, which is one of the components of the EOS system, is to also have processes in place. So we use Whale to document processes and procedures. And if you want to check it out, is usewhale.io. So it's whale is like the animal whale. So it's usewhale.io. Highly recommend that you check it out. So let's dive into it. So Isaiah, the first thing I'd like to hear is overall of what Traction Tools is. So we get a little bit of an orientation about that.
Yeah, you got it, Adi. So let me get started here, and just by saying that for anybody that's listening and everyone who is listening, I do not plan on having this be like a sales pitch. My goal is not to have you sign up for Traction Tools or things like that. We just want to share authentically today things that we've learned, best practices. If you do decide to use a software platform, great. Whale is phenomenal. Also, we use Whale for process documentation implementation within our teams. Really valuable tool also. So I'd like to get started, if you don't mind, Adi, and just share my experience about EOS, my introduction to EOS, and what EOS means to me, and some of the things that I've been able to learn and then implement throughout even in my personal life, but in my professional life as well, and career. So in getting kickstarted there, I learned about EOS about actually a little over 6 years ago. Actually, when I was interviewing for Traction Tools. Traction Tools was the first software provider for EOS, for a software solution to implement EOS in that type of a way. Before that, it was all just paper tools, like Excel or even literally on paper. If you can imagine that, And when I interviewed for Traction Tools, the owner gave me a demo of the Level 10 meeting agenda, which is a 90-minute specific weekly meeting agenda. And he did use Traction Tools to do that. And when I saw this meeting agenda, where the things that really hit me was the to-do tracking or the task creation and tracking, the follow-up of that, and then the issues list. Those are the things that just hit me like a ton of bricks. And I was in this interview actually, for a job. And while I'm there, he's going through the meeting and sharing, about having a big and building an issues list, where instead of scheduling a meeting with somebody about a specific topic, we actually have a weekly meeting with our team, and there's an issues list that is simply just a list of topics where every team member can add problems that they see in the business, process that's broken, things that aren't working, et cetera, or opportunities, sales opportunities, business development opportunities, all kinds of things like that. And then the beauty of this is that you prioritize the list. Before we begin to start problem solving, or Adi, you come to me and you're like, hey, Isaiah, I really need to talk to you about the, fixing the bathroom, or the things not working in the conference center. And all of a sudden, as owners, as entrepreneurs, as executives, so often we get sucked into these meetings that are not the highest value use of our time. And then through the weekly level 10 meeting, or a weekly agenda where you have an issues list that's living, breathing, 20, 30 topics, etc., and you do a good job of prioritizing, because this, as you know, Adi, this is just a big prioritization game, right? The better that we can do on prioritizing, the highest value use of our time on a yearly, quarterly, monthly, weekly, daily basis, the better results we'll get as executives, as a business, as a team. So when I saw this agenda and the problem solving and the creating of the to-dos and then reviewing them, you guys, the majority of my professional career has lived in meetings that go on for 2 or 3 hours. We talk about the same thing that we solved 2 weeks ago or last week. And it's just like, what's going on? I thought we solved this. And then Adi, you were supposed to do that, right? Didn't you have that task to do that in the parking lot? And she's like, no, Isaiah, you were supposed to do that. And well, what? No, I thought we agreed upon, and just this chaotic confusion of not really executing well. Hopefully your experience isn't as bad as mine was in that way, but it came to the point where I hated meetings.
Sure.
We weren't solving anything. There were no real results, no real outcomes. We were not able to prioritize what's the highest value thing we should be working on, those kinds of things. So that's kind of the background that I'm coming from, and that I'd love to share some best practices and tips today to help avoid some of those pitfalls that can happen when having any kind of a meeting, actually. So Adi,
sure.
I've been rambling on too much. I'm going to pass the mic back over to you now.
You're doing great. Well, I mean, it's definitely like, I can feel the passion and hearing the story and how it all came about. It's definitely makes sense, right? Because then you learn, oh, wow, there is a great way, organized way of actually conducting a meeting. And I had a whole podcast done about the level 10 meeting, and I'm going to include the notes to it in the show notes so people can refer to it exactly how to do it. But you're going to share best practices from your viewpoint. And we're also going to have in the show notes a downloadable where you actually, they can download your how would you call it? The structure of the meeting, right? The structure is not just yours, but the structure of a well-run level 10 meeting. And we're going to talk about that. But I do want to go back to traction tools, right? I mean, you're right. We're not selling anything, but what I want to talk about is the importance of having a software to execute a system, right? Yeah. Because you can have a management system that you are using and you have meetings, you want to hold people accountable, you're creating a strategy, you are writing your core values, you have the different aspects of the organization, you're collecting data, you have the to-dos that you have to follow up on, etc. Mm-hmm. And I think what people struggle with is like, how do I get it organized, right? And one of the things I wanted to ask you, because that's what you do, that's what traction tools, that's what you do, is you basically create an organized system, a system on a software that actually allows people to run their entire company within a software, right? It's kind of like having, in a manufacturing company, you will have in ERP system, you will have a central system that actually controls the different aspects of the manufacturing process, right? Yep. If you have, let's say you are a doctor's office, you will have a software that will manage the patient flow, right? I just interviewed Ian from Carbon, which is a workflow management software for accountants, right? So, and we talked in that episode about the importance of having a software specifically to manage the specific workflow that you are doing. So in different industries, you have different softwares that manage that specific workflow for that industry. Now, Traction Tools is a software that actually manages the flow of management, right? Do I have that correctly? Does that fit?
Yeah. So what Traction Tools will allow you to do is take the components of EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System, and get it in such a way that it's tangible, transparent. Everybody in the company can have access to it, to the tool. So, for example, your business planning. Almost all of us do some sort of business planning, whether it's a 10-year goals, a 3-year, 5-year, etc. This is laid out in such a way that you can have it in that specific area in the software. The right team members can have access to that, so they have that direction of what are our goals for the quarter, what are our goals for the year, where do we want to be with our metrics, our KPIs, our key leading indicators, are we on track, off track, etc. And then it also provides the meeting structure cadence for all of your teams, such that it creates a great space for communication, collaboration. You can share items between meetings. You can, the leadership team really needs to solve this, or let's have the sales team take a look at that. You can send issues, topics between meetings, and really get specific. So Traction Tools will help with accountability. It'll make everything crystal clear. When a to-do gets created and I say I'm going to do this, I can't just go in and delete it after the meeting. Like it's there and it's accountable, and the system is set up as such that we'll review it the next week or the following meeting, etc. And it creates just a great rhythm of problem solving, executing on the solutions, ensuring that everybody's crystal clear to their roles, responsibilities, and that we're all in alignment and working towards the long-term goals that we have, one quarter at a time with the high-level goals, and then on a weekly basis, obviously, when we're, reviewing, ensuring that we're on track, etc.
Good. So from your experience, now that you're working you're the COO of Traction for, what is it now, over 6 years?
Yeah, I was the operations leader for Traction Tools for about 4 years, and I've been the COO for about 2 years now.
Good. So for your vantage point of actually helping with the implementation of Traction Tools, what would you say is the difference between a business that uses a software to manage their business operation and a business that does not use a software and uses a component of Excel spreadsheets, pieces of paper, notebooks, etc.? What do you have an analogy, or do you have a story that can emphasize the difference, and why is it important to actually have a system?
Yeah, my goodness, you guys, if you're trying to implement an operating system in your business through Excel or Google Docs or Google Sheets or paper, or worse yet, verbally, without having it documented somewhere, it's just going to be it's going to be a nightmare. You'll have the he said, she said stuff going on. People won't be clear as to what we're striving for, what we're, driving towards. Accountabilities won't be clear, etc. We've had, thousands of companies that have come through that have been trying to implement, some sort of an operating system, whether it's EOS or components of EOS, etc. And it's in Excel or it's on paper, and it's just things get lost. We don't know, it's so hard to know what to focus on, where to track things, what people are doing and working on. And a software solution is going to eliminate all of that. It's going to lay it out for you, so you don't have to try to figure out the setup, what goes where, how do we actually structure this, and all of those kinds of things. It's like, I don't know how to, I don't have an analogy actually, Adi. I'm trying to think of one off the top of my head right now, but, just running your business in something that's already laid out for you is going to be so much easier than trying to reinvent the wheel and do it yourself. And you just gain so much more traction and speed and implementation. It's like, for example, if you have somebody that wants to be your sales leader, and they're brand new to sales, and oh, we'll train them and they can learn and grow, and well, great. Yeah, they sure can. And maybe it'll take them 1 to 2 years before they learn and grow and become as effective as they could be if they had 5 years of experience. How's that for an analogy? Right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. It's just like having the systems there. Like when we say like a system, it also includes the software system. So the software will not do anything for you. It's whatever data you put in there.
Right.
And of course, it will do if you have the right data, but it's up to you to enter the data and manage. But it's a tool. It's one of the tools. I think it's an integral part for any organization to actually have a tool that you can actually also manage and create that system. And I know you mentioned at the beginning, like what got you so excited is that, seeing that there is an organized way of running a meeting. And yes, there is a specific agenda. And as I said, you can download, there will be a downloadable PDF. You can download that meeting agenda. But I'd love to hear from you. How do you actually use the software in order to run a meeting? Like, what are the best practices? Whether you use traction tools or you decide to do it in another software, but it's like, what are the best practices of recording the meeting notes, recording the issues, running through the agenda, the do's and don'ts? Just would love to hear your perspective on it.
Yeah, you got it. So from my perspective, I think the value of the level 10 meeting, for example, is a 90-minute meeting, has a specific agenda like Adi mentioned. And inside of the software platform, the meeting agenda is templated for you. So it's really just plug and play. You create the leadership team, sales, customer service, support, marketing, business development, etc. All the departments, teams that you wish and desire. And it gives you the templated meeting structure. And then it's up to you to fill in the correct KPIs. And most of us know what we're tracking as a business within our industry. Those, we recommend that you track those on a weekly basis so you can identify any trends, issues, opportunities. If we're off track, you can identify that sooner rather than later. And the software will allow you to do that in a very easy, simple, concise way.
So do you actually have to go change it every week, or does it have a place where you actually log it in every week and then it just changes it? How does it work?
Yeah, so you normally set a target of a weekly goal, and that's normally very straightforward. You can take the quarterly goal and divide it into 13 weeks in a quarter, or 12, or whatever your quarters run. But that's just the normal standard. And then if we're hitting that goal every week, and I know that may change, right, with seasonality and stuff like that, and you can become a little bit more fancy with your goals and things, of course. But essentially, you enter in the data every week. You can link it up also with, we have an integration with Zapier. So depending upon what other tools you're using, you can make those connections, auto-populate, or people can grab the data and pop it in. It's really quick. And then it's a part of the review of the meeting agenda. And then we would create any issues or topics or discussion points out of any of the metrics that are not on target or off track, that with the whole goal or purpose of us as a team identifying what the root cause of the issue is, and then taking action items to execute on that to move the numbers metrics back on track. So it's really simple, really exciting, great meeting agenda. When you get into a rhythm of this, it becomes very productive, actually. And what I love about this too is fire drills happen and those kinds of things, right? But to the best of our ability, if we can avoid the fire drill paradigm where the squeakiest wheel gets the attention, and as an entrepreneur, normally in a lot of cases, you're the one that started the business. You have all the answers. Everybody's running to you all the time. And a lot of times what happens is that as an entrepreneur, you get bombarded all the time. Hey, this isn't working. Hey, I need your help. Hey, I need this. I need this. I need this. I need this. And pretty soon you're just in this mode of fire drill, fighting fires, direction, and stuff like that. And it may not be the highest, best value use of your time. So what I love about the weekly meeting agenda, the level 10 meeting of the issues component is it allows a space for all of those issues to live. So instead of having everybody coming to you, oh, Adi, I don't know what to do here. What's the next podcast? What's the da 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 da? And you're just constantly getting sucked into that. Well, no, if it's not an emergency, we don't have to solve it right now. Let's add it to the list. Then we can prioritize, and we're just prioritizing every week. What do we actually want to solve? And then
so just so I can get it straight. So basically what you're saying is, if issues, let's say we have a meeting once a week with the leadership team and things happen throughout the week. So instead of me, let's say you and I are on the leadership team. So instead of me just bombarding you with emails or going to your office and talking to you about it or starting a Zoom call or, whatnot, I can actually go and record the issues if it's not an emergency. That's why, again, another reason why to have a system, like an actual software where you can actually have a place where people can log in. They can go, okay, I have an issue with XYZ that I'd like to discuss. And then I would assume people will read it before the meeting, right? So you come prepared to see what issues are already there. So then you are prepared, and that saves time as well. So in the meeting, instead of presenting or now starting to discuss which issues we're going to solve, I mean, maybe we can add some in the meeting, but there is also the preparation of having it there. So then you can touch it and discuss it and solve it, right?
Yes, exactly. And the beauty of this, and yes, all of that is available. You can review the meeting agenda beforehand. You can see all the issues. You can add issues. You can remove them when they're no longer pertinent, etc. But the beauty of this is when done the correct way or rightly or successfully, it may sound counterintuitive to have a weekly meeting scheduled for 90 minutes with your team every week, same day, same time, 90 minutes, same agenda. And but actually what happens is you actually have less meetings that get scheduled and ad hoc meetings that get scheduled. And it becomes quite beautiful, actually. Like, I just connected with my team this morning. We had a level 10 meeting with our team, business development, sales, etc. And it was so productive. And, it's very rarely do I have these fire drill type meetings where people are constantly coming to me because they're solving issues within their department, figuring things out, working as a team. Our department the leadership team is like, everybody's in this rhythm. And then we can send issues to the right department to make sure we have the right people in the room to solve that specific topic, opportunity, problem, etc. And it becomes this beautiful rhythm and cycle where it's, not a lot of stress associated with it, but we come to solve problems, to move the business forward. And the goal is to always be working on the highest value things. And I know I've repeated that over and over and over, but to me, that is so valuable. That is, and I've seen that in the growth of my career as well. And I've seen that in other businesses that I've been a part of, where we as a leadership team, we're solving problems that were not worth our time or the salary dollars or the investment. And it blows my mind that, and then when I saw EOS in this, a better way, it's like, it's so great, everybody. Like it really, really is. And
Sure.
We run on EOS, we use traction tools and all that stuff too as a company. And it's a beautiful way to run a business, actually.
Absolutely. And what you were touching on in terms of the prioritization. So just want to make sure it's very clear in terms of, you can have 10 issues on the list, but you only have certain amount of time to discuss it. And you can see it when you go to the show notes and you download the agenda that you provided an example of. You'll see that there is also minutes, much minutes you're going to spend on each part. And so if you have, let's say, 20 minutes to discuss those issues and you have 10 of those, you're not going to discuss it all. So you have to prioritize.
Right.
And that is the important. That's what you're saying in terms of, like, it's not everything is the same as everything else, but you're actually forcing yourself to think in an analytical way in terms of, like, what are my priorities? If I have only this amount of time to solve a problem, which problems am I going to solve that actually going to move the needle forward as opposed to just tread in place, right?
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So that is a very good point. And, as you were talking, I think it's also, now we are facing some companies are working in person. Some of them are working from home. Some of them are always been remote. Some of them will be remote, so having a system like that and a software that everybody can log in and see allows a team to work remotely better.
Yes, most
well
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're completely remote and virtual, and we have been for 7+ years since the company started. And through Slack with instant messaging, through Zoom video conferencing, and through traction tools, weekly meeting agenda, planning, organizational structure, etc. All that provides. It provides just a really great framework for virtual remote communication, ensuring that everybody's aligned and moving in the same direction as an organization. Really phenomenal. And the other thing I'd like to mention on prioritization is, we all know that there's a million things we could be working on and focused on, and our time is limited, and there's no way that we can get everything done. You just can't. No matter what the business is, what you're working on, even in your own family, etc. There's never enough time to do all of the things that we could do. So obviously the best rate of return is finding and prioritizing and focusing on the highest value things. What's the biggest, bang for our time? What's the highest value results that we can get out of the use of our time? That's really the goal. And one other thing that I'd like to just mention here, because it's been so valuable and helpful for me as I've been on this journey, and it's going to sound really simple, but it's extremely valuable. It's in the creation of to-dos or tasks or follow-up action items. Whenever you're solving an issue, or regardless, even if it's just somebody commits to, hey, I'm going to do this, or I need to do that, etc. I just want to encourage everybody to be very specific in your titles. And, well, duh, Isaiah, well, but you could imagine, though, how many times, and even as traction tools, and even as doing this for years, how many times, people write a to-do or an action item really quickly, and the title is vague or ambiguous, and it's not specific, and we come back to review the next week, and people are like, oh, I couldn't remember what that was, so I didn't do it. Well, oh my
You're
goodness.
100% correct. And I have that, even when we document procedures for companies, when we write the processes, I always said, the action item, the action of the step should be very clear. You have to use a verb, because I've seen what you are talking about. People will say, Joe Blow, meaning instead of saying, call Joe and ask him about XYZ to get a resolution on ABC, right? So then you read it and you go, oh yeah, I've done it or not done it, right? So I also don't like even to use the word ensure that this gets done. Well, what does ensure means? How do you ensure, right?
Exactly.
You go, you read, you check, you answer, you call, it's actions that you can actually check off, because ensure, it's a vague verb, right? So I agree with you. And actually, my next question was, so we have the issues, we wrote the issues, process the issues, but then out of an issue come action items, right? Specific to-dos. So how do you recommend, or how do you use it within the software to make sure that there is accountability on the to-dos? Because I can tell you that probably our listeners go, yeah, this is great, but we can have the only reason to have a meeting that is the only time a meeting is really successful is if we either solve something right there that we can put in action. So we have to follow that the action is being taken, or we came up with some to-dos that then have to be followed up. And if they are done, then it's a success.
Yes, exactly. And the beauty of the software is that it forces you to do this well. So when you're solving issues in there, there's a spot where you can create what we call a context-aware to-do or action item. And it basically grabs all of the notes that you were taking when you were discussing what the issue actually was, and it populates it into the notes of the to-do that you're going to be creating. And it only allows you to select one owner for the to-do, or rather, if both Adi and I are selected as owners of it, then it creates two separate distinct to-dos with the same title, same notes for each of us. So the software basically forces clear accountability. There's no sharing of responsibilities. And that's a danger. When we start talking, oh yeah, we can do that, or we will work on that together. Well, that's great. Yes, work as a team, work on that together, but somebody has to be accountable. Somebody has to own the to-do or own the project, the results or the outcome of the project. Doesn't necessarily mean that I have to do all the work. We can work on it together. We can collaborate together, but I'm ultimately responsible or accountable. It's my name that's attached to it, so that in the next meeting, it's Isaiah, did that get done or not? Yes, it did. Adi and I worked together on that, and these are the results that we came up with. Like that's the beauty of this. There's no ambiguity in ownership, and then we can put very specific titles so we know clearly what it is that we're going to be doing, the action that's going to be taking place.
Perfect. So there is continuation and there is accountability. Is there a quick question? So on traction tools, if somebody is using a project management software like Asana or ClickUp or Monday.com, do they integrate? I mean, do they complement each other? Do you suggest one instead of the other? How does it work?
Yeah, so that's a really great question. So, and it's actually one of the most common questions I think that we get from our clients as well. And it's probably one of the most common problems within business today of having multiple software solutions. So I've got tasks in this, I've got tasks in my inbox, I've got stuff in 3 to 4 different spots. I think to the ability that we can consolidate and get everything in one spot, the greater the degree that we won't miss things. That's just my personal opinion. And clients want to do that all the time. So let me just take a step back. So with other software solutions for, project management and things like that, great. A lot of that is necessary and required. What we do and what we recommend is an integration with Zapier. So essentially what our clients will do if they're using Asana, for example, and they have their projects in there and tasks coming out of them, and yet they have a weekly meeting with the leadership team or their departmental team, et cetera, and they get to-dos out of that meeting, you can get it linked up such that when the to-do is created, it automatically sends it over to your task list in Asana. That way you have all of your tasks in one spot. Your tasks or to-dos that are coming from your meeting, your tasks or to-dos that are from, the next steps in the project that you have that you're working on, et cetera. But, that's a great way to, and very simple way to do it. With some simple setup, you can get that stuff linked and it can sync them both ways.
I agree. I'm all about integration, and, it works the best when you do that, because then you don't have to go manually enter it here and enter it there, but it just integrates it. Because they task management software, what I find is that they're more robust in terms of, like, if you're running a marketing project, right? Or if you're running whatever you're producing, whatever you're doing, there is a lot of things that you will enter into Monday or Asana or ClickUp, etc. But then you have traction tools that actually runs the system of the business in terms of the meetings, in terms of the keeping the core values, etc. I mean, you just have that system together and then they integrate one with another. I think that's a great solution.
Yes, I agree.
Awesome. Well, that has been thank you so much for being a guest on this podcast. It's been a great interview where we learned a lot. I think we convinced our listeners that they do need to use tools and systems to automate things in order for them to be able to do what they like best and expand their businesses. Anything else you would like to add in closing?
I just want to say that it's been a real pleasure, and I would really encourage any business owner, entrepreneur that's listening to this, that if you do not have some operating system in your business, consider EOS, consider using traction tools, but having that framework will allow you to grow so much faster. And believe me, I have literally seen thousands of companies, and I've seen companies try to do things on their own and really struggle in that way. We work with EOS implementers. You can get a coach that can help you implement an operating system like EOS. So I just want to encourage you that those resources are out there and available, and they can allow you, get the advice from the been there, done that, and you can get your business on a framework that is proven to work and can really expedite your growth and traction and all of those great things. So that's what I'd like to do in closing. Adi, thank you for having me on the show today.
You're very welcome. Thank you. All right.
Thanks for listening to the System Simplified podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.